drilling material into a pit. And it doesn't mean the same thing about whether it has to be lined or not. It says it needs to be made. Any rules on that? Beth, am I right on that?
Yeah, I can answer that a little better. Up until last session, liners were not required. Now they are required unless an engineer specifies that the soil is impermeable, a registered engineer. And we wanted them to ban the burial on site, and the compromise when they put it back in was that it can't be buried on site unless the landowner agrees, which probably means they'll offer the landowner a couple $1,000 to do it anyway.
Okay.
All the pictures I've seen of the pits, the liner's pretty torn up before they end up burying it, so I'm not sure the liner makes any difference anyway.
Beth, any questions?
I couldn't hear all of it. Are the drilling operators required to tell you what's in the drilling fluid? Is that part of the bill?
Part of the bill? No, there's no language in the bill that says what the drilling fluid.
Nobody really knows what's in the drilling fluid.
There's a website, frackfocus.org, which lists things that can go in fluids, but it's sort of hard to dig down through and find. But
I'm
it's
sure
provided in
most of it's ethylene glycol, which is antifreeze and propylene glycol.
There's hydraulic acids, sulfuric acids, lots of salt and other things, many things to be concerned about.
Stuff you don't want to drink anymore.
No. Thanks. Any other questions about the bill as it's passed? Okay. Let's move on to the rest of the discussion, which is about the ballot issues. As we've talked about this in previous meetings, a few times some comments would come from people, perhaps some of you right here tonight. Why don't we put this on the ballot? Why don't you let the ballot decide this? My approach to this has been to see if we could decide something as a commission. We haven't been able to do that. We've got a petition from some nearly 800 people that are opposed to drilling. We recently, on Tuesday, received a petition from nearly 700 people that are in favor of drilling. So signatures continue to come in from both sides of the issue. I think,
and it's appropriate that I make this remark at this point because I think something's getting lost in the translation here. First of all, the materials that I received didn't tell me that people were in favor of drilling. They were talking about property rights and business and that kind of thing. Nobody said they wanted drilling. They were talking. So there's a translation problem here, and I think that has gotten us all off track because love of clean water and property rights are totally consistent with one another. And in fact, the people who have been maintaining the county for years and years and decades and generations have been excellent stewards of their water and their property rights. So there's nothing inconsistent with that position and wanting to have good, clean water. And in fact, if somebody wanted to have drilling, I'm sure that that landowner would be very concerned to make sure that that water was going to be protected, his and his neighbors. So I'm concerned that as we're talking, we're losing something in the translation and meaning of what we're saying, and it's coming out as though we are antagonistic with one another. And I don't think that we are. And so I would urge us tonight, as we're discussing this, to understand that we're really all on the same page. And I would urge that. And again, secondly, and I've said this over and over, I believe that if there is ever going to be drilling here, it's way, 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 way in the future. So we have a lot of time to educate ourselves and to understand exactly what our feelings are. But let's not get locked into positions where we feel that somehow we're antagonistic with one another, because we're not. People who love their property love clean water. People who want good business in the county want clean water. We're not against one another. So that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Well said.
So, are you trying to take away the property on this place that have built on this property?
Sir, before we get into a question and answer, I want to present some more aspects about what we've come to this point in the discussion, petition signatures, and what we can do to collect more information from the citizens of the county in terms of their position on this, so that we as a commission can make the best decisions possible. In response to some people asking, what about the ballot? I looked into this issue, and I wanted us to see if there was anything at all we could put on the ballot that would be fair and representative of the kind of information we're trying to gather, even if this was possible. I had our county clerk, Melissa Bennett, contact the Secretary of State's office, and we also, there's actually several people spoken with here. This is a response from Tim Leach, Assistant General Counsel from the Secretary of State's office. Clerk Bennett, below I give the statutory and constitutional language which may limit the county commission's authority to survey the county voters. I strongly urge the commission to consult with its own counsel, the prosecutor, or whomever that would be, because the issue does not appear to be directly decided by the West Virginia Supreme Court and the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State is not legally permitted to issue advisory opinions. The issue being whether a county commission can ask a question on the ballot, such as, do you favor this, do you wish for this, what are your feelings on the other? I'll continue. Here is what has been cited to us as controlling authority. Quote, the county commission is a corporation created by statute and possessed only of such powers as are expressly conferred by the Constitution and legislature, together with such as are reasonably and necessarily implied in the full and proper exercise of the powers so expressly given. It can do only such things as are authorized by law and in the mode prescribed. And then it has several citations. And here is the statutory provision, 3-6-2, preparation and form of general election ballots. The board of, this is a 362F. The Board of Ballot Commissioners may not place any issue on the ballot for election which is not specifically authorized under the West Virginia Constitution or statutes, or which has not been properly ordered by the appropriate governmental body charged with calling the election. And there's another section code, section 911. Such commissions may exercise such other powers and perform such other duties not of a judicial nature as may be prescribed by law. Tim goes on to say, Mr. Leach, from the Assistant General Counsel from the Secretary of State, goes on to say, I'm not sure how the process works, but is the Commission permitted to request an opinion of the State Attorney General? If so, that is another avenue. So I spoke with Deputy General of the Appellate Division, Dawn Warfield, and it was her opinion that the Attorney General's office could not decide on this issue, but she felt that it was actually not allowed for us to do this. She said it's really up to the Secretary of State's office. So it's one agency sort of telling the other kind of thing. But there's more. So I spoke with Tim Leach on the phone from the Secretary of State's office. He says the Secretary of State has no official position on the matter. He can't find record where it's been done or disapproved either way. He said that being said, there are certainly arguments on either side. The risks are that someone might allege the election is invalid because of improper issue on the ballot. However, if you're just asking a survey question, he doesn't see how that really challenges the ballot issue. So we did check with our counsel, our attorney Roger Foreman, who is working on this at no charge to us. You met Mr. Foreman at a previous meeting here in this room. He says, I do believe, he reviewed these materials, and he says, I do believe that you have the legal authority pursuant to West Virginia Code 312. He thinks the best questions must be simple, and says he's available to assist in any way we need. Robert Bastress, the attorney in the Morgantown case, states that my intuitive response is that the commission can ask the voters for their opinion on anything. State law might limit the questions that can be submitted to the voters to make or amend law, but what I understand is being proposed is a non-binding referendum seeking an expression of opinion. That seems to me a difference with the meaning. So our council has said that since this is a non-binding referendum, or if we ask a question in a way that's not a non-binding, so it's a non-binding referendum, then that, in their opinion, is okay. An example of a question we would be sort of wrong to ask would be to put on the ballot, Pocahontas County bans Marcellus drilling, yes or no? Because it's not clear that we can do that. So to put that on the ballot would be overstepping our bounds. Let's see. I spoke also with Pendleton County. There is a similar issue in Pendleton County that was occurring last year. This was referred to us by Tim Leach, the Attorney General, or Assistant General Counsel for the Secretary of State. So I called Commissioner Gene McConnell in Pendleton County and spoke with him. In particular, their question they wanted some voter feedback on was the presence of wind turbines in Pendleton County. And they wanted to put on the ballot this past November the question, do you favor wind turbines in Pendleton County? So he spoke with the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the West Virginia Association of Counties, which is an organization which fronts county issues and questions. The Secretary of State, same kind of conversation you can imagine. There's nothing allowed to do it, but nothing disallows it either. Possible consequences, worst case was that the commission could be sued if the question was perceived to be inappropriate. But he was told that this is hard to conceive of when you're just asking an opinion question. Commissioner McConnell in Pendleton County thought it was an excellent idea to do. Feels it's a tremendously potent tool, and that said, the Commission in Pendleton County decided not to put that question on their ballot this past November, and his reason for that was that they felt since it was a sort of an unexciting gubernatorial election that there wouldn't be many voters turn out at the ballot to express their opinion on this issue. So they're going to revisit the issue for the general election coming up in November. Mr. McConnell also opined that it costs you very little to measure public opinion since you're just putting something additional on the ballot. So it's a cheap way to get some feedback from your voters. His last quote to me was, "You can never go wrong trying to solicit public opinion." So that's where we stand with the information. That's all the information I have on the issue at this time. My thinking is, if this is something we want to do, to put a question on the ballot, it should be very simple and very direct. It should be something along the lines of, do you favor Marcellus shale drilling in Pocahontas County? Yes or no? I think it would be fair for me to tell you what I would do with that information if you want a ballot. I would hope that each of us commissioners would speak to that. What I would do, if we put that question on the ballot, do you favor Marcellus shale drilling in Pocahontas County, yes or no? When the information comes back, if the voters say that they do favor Marcellus shale drilling, which is to say we don't want the Pocahontas County Commission to try to regulate or do anything else